Welcome to another episode of That's Some Crazy Shit with Kelly and James. My name is Kelly and my co-host is Mr. James. What's happening, co-host Mr. James?
Hello, listeners. You like my new voice?
What's that? I don't like your
I'm
new
just messing
voice.
with you.
I don't like it.
I was like special effects.
So, today is another one of those podcast days where, guess what?
We got a guest.
We got a guest. James, you're getting good at this.
I catch on.
And our guest is really cool. She's actually a PhD. See, because we do hang out with smart people.
We do. She's like our second PhD, isn't she?
Yeah, or maybe our third. Who knows? But her name is Dr. Rita Louise. She's a PhD. She's a naturopathic physician, and she's a 20-year veteran in the human potential field. She has a unique gift as being a clairvoyant and an intuitive, which helps her with her work as a neuropathic physician. So she does healing, not only through holistic medicine, but through energy as well. She's written books. She's got videos out there on YouTube that you can go out and look at. She's an absolute wonderful guest, James. I think you will really enjoy speaking with her.
Well, should we just bring her on then?
Sure. Let's do it.
Hey, I say let's do it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let's do it.
Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Rita Louise. Dr. Rita, thank you so much for being a part of That's Some Crazy Shit. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I love the name of your show.
It's funny,
I'm like,
Doctor.
okay, this is going to be interesting.
When we first started, I had someone tell me, you will never get guests with that title, James. No one will ever want to be on. And it's so funny. That's the first thing people say is they like the title.
Mm-hmm. Just the opposite.
It's relatable.
Yeah, just the opposite.
Like I'm not supposed to say that kind of way.
Nah, you're fine. So we are glad that you're here. So tell us, Dr. Rita, everybody, what am I trying to say? Crazy stuff or crazy shit is a very broad umbrella and it really depends on your perspective. But I believe if memory serves me, you're an intuitive, correct?
Correct.
So tell us what that is. What does that mean when somebody says I'm an intuitive?
Okay, easy enough question, but I joke around and say like my world is the land of crazy, and people call me because when you do intuitive work, and I'll just segue into that, people call because they have something going on, or I prefer my client call and say, this is what's going on with me versus saying, hey, tell me something, which I think is really a waste of time. And so I have had people call me, it's even hard to sit there and describe, they have all kinds of, health related things or something going on with a relationship or whatever, and then it gets into the even more further out ones, where I have clients who think that they were like abducted or have alien implants. I mean, it is definitely like the land of the weird. But when you do intuitive readings, it's you tune into that person's vibration, because we all send and receive information kind of like a TV station out into the universe. And so someone that uses their intuitive abilities has the ability to change the channel and tap into different frequencies, and they communicate that information back to them of what they're seeing in their energy space.
That's interesting. I have a question real quick, Doctor. Is this something that everyone can learn, or how did you discover that you could do this?
Okay. So this is something that's built into us. So I want to start there. We're designed to send, receive, and process information. So we've all had experiences where you're thinking about your friend Jane, and there she is. She walks around the corner, or she calls you up on the phone. It's like we've all had that experience, but we're not taught to pay attention to it or to acknowledge it and validate it. And I think if people paid attention to what was going on in their daily lives, they would realize that that happens to them all the time. And a lot of the times we just don't give it credit, or give it the attention that it's due. For me, well, you look like you might be old enough. So when I was a kid, there was a TV series called The Amazing Kreskin, and Kreskin was a mentalist, and he had ESP. And then at the same time, so you're looking at me like, so maybe I'm older. Anyway, and there was another TV show called The Sixth Sense. So not the movie, but a TV show that had Gary Collins, and he was a college professor and taught parapsychology, but he had ESP too. So he would walk into a room and, I don't want to be technical, and he would touch something and he would see the image of a ghost going across the room, or, he would see somebody getting into their car and going down this windy road and they fly off the cliff because the brake lines were cut. And he would get out there in the nick of time to not let them be in the car. And then they would find that the brake lines were cut. So between the two, when I was a kid, I decided I wanted to learn how to do that. And, if you looked at my bookshelves, you're like, okay, I guess you've been working on this a while. So I was older and found the Berkeley Psychic Institute and studied with them and discovered early in the year-long training that I had been very intuitive my entire life, and I never, like I was saying, that awareness thing, I never connected the dots, and so you have weird stuff that happens, but you never go, oh, but that was my intuition. You just write it off to some weird coincidence. I'll tell it could be a much longer story, but I'll just get to the punchline. So I worked with a gentleman who didn't come into work one day. Okay, so this is before I had any intuition. This is pre-Dr. Rita. And the following day, I went into his office because I was friends with his office mate, and this was the boss. But I went over to say hi, and so he was older, and I was 20, so that kind of gives you a little, and he had this major comb-over thing going on, and he had this little round Band-Aid on the top of his head, and so my cognitive mind said, oh, he must have a zit there, and it was pussy, and he put the Band-Aid up there because it was just nasty. So that's what's going through my mind. And I walked up to him, I crossed my arm, looked at him straight in the face and said, where were you yesterday? Having them checked for a brain tumor? And he turned and walked out of the room, and that was where he was the day before, having them checked for a brain tumor. Now, I never said, oh, I'm having this intuitive experience, even though I was shaking inside. Once I said it, I would, it was electrifying. So that's kind of like an over-the-top situation, but everybody has things like that happen, but they go, oh, well, that was a weird coincidence, and they just write it off to something else.
Yeah, that's funny, Doctor. I say there are no coincidences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So give us an idea for when somebody comes to you for a reading, because a lot of times when people think of readings, they're thinking of, I'm going to go to a psychic, they're going to tell me my future, right? As an intuitive, are you more telling people about themselves, or what are you reading when you do an intuitive reading?
Okay. So my personal, this is my opinion, others might not agree, is that if somebody sits there and says they're going to predict the future, that you should just pick up your stuff and run. Because I don't believe, we can have precognitive insights. I've had some, but my experience has been, and the people that I know, is they tend to be flashes. It's not something that you can tap into directly because the future it's moving. And so if somebody asks me about the future, I can say, okay, so this is where your energy is in moving forward, and this is the probability of it occurring. But I had a guy come to me, it was at a fair, and he wanted to know when he was going to get a job. And so when I looked at his energy, I'm like, but I'm not really seeing any forward movement from you. I'm not really seeing anything. And he goes, well, I haven't started sending out resumes. Well, I could have just said, oh, it's going to be 3 months, but it would have been just crap.
That makes sense.
Because if he wasn't sending
your
out
honesty.
resumes, then nothing was going to happen.
Right.
And so I like when people come with questions, and I'm a naturopathic physician and have a PhD in natural health counseling. So I work with a lot of people that have health related issues. But one of the areas that I really shine in is helping people to understand where their psycho-spiritual issues, and I'm going to put a different word on it, where their trauma is trapped in their body and presenting itself as disease. Did that make sense to you guys?
It does make sense.
I've heard something like that before.
And so because unless you heal what's going on with you emotionally, I mean, you could say that you're stressed out, but it's like, but what are you stressed out about? And, for some reason, I was just blessed with this ability to just kind of like cut through all the layers and go, okay, when you were like 5 or 6 years old, you had this experience. And so I don't know what the experience was, but you ended up feeling this way. And that's where the trauma is. And everything has been, it's kind of like an onion or a corn. That's the little nugget on the inside. And it just builds and builds and builds and builds and builds until you get sick. And so that's one of the areas that I really shine in. As far as working with clients, but I work with, the only thing I don't work with, because again, land of the weirdness, is I don't talk to dead people.
Okay.
That's cool.
Well, it's just funny because I'll do ghost hunting, and I have done ghost hunting, but it's one thing to like have your ghost be at your house. And it's another thing for you to come to my office, and you might like leave your ghost in my office. And
and that's funny, doctor, because I go on investigations too.
Uh-huh.
And I'm the first time I went with the person, I'm more spiritual than religious, and I'm like, we need to say some kind of protection prayer or spell or whatever, because there's bad stuff out there. And they kind of dismissed me like, oh, this guy's crazy. And then the same thing after, I was like, you got to make sure that you tell whatever's here to stay here. And they're like, oh, we won't do that, James. And I'm like, well, not everything's Casper out there, people.
Yeah. And that is scary, which is why we don't go on ghost investigations.
That's why you don't.
Yes, that's why we don't.
I mean, when I would go to an investigation, I didn't pray, but I would always do like a little energy clearing before I went in so that I walked in clear, and then would do a little energy clearing when I would leave, just to not take anything with me. Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense. So if somebody wanted to maybe, I don't know, tap into or strengthen their intuition, how do you go about doing that?
Okay. So one of the things that I offer, here's a little plug, sorry. I'm not a big plugger, but it fits here. I offer a professional level training program that teaches people how to do energy work. So it's a certified energy medicine practitioner, intuitive counselor, and medical intuitive. So there's 3 layers. But long story short, the way that you start tapping into it is not, in my opinion, opening your chakras, but by raising your awareness. Again, I'm going to give a different example of stuff that we've all had happen to us. So you get up in the morning and the sun is out and it looks like it's going to be a beautiful day. But there's this little voice in your head going, oh, well, maybe you should take a sweater, or maybe you should take your umbrella. And your brain is going, well, that's really stupid. It's beautiful outside. I'm not going to need that. And then you get to work and it's freezing, or a storm front comes in and you need the umbrella, and so that's one way of tuning in, is to start listening to those little messages that you get. And then moving forward, and sometimes it could be something you hear on the radio that just like clicks with you.
Some kind of trigger.
All right, true story. And this just happened a couple of weeks ago. So I was at a girlfriend's house and her air conditioner drain thing went through her upstairs bathroom, because apparently that's how they drain your air conditioner now, is through the bathroom drain. And the bathroom sink was overflowing. And so she was freaking out, and tried to call the plumber, blah, blah, blah. It was a Sunday, blah, 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 blah. So I had gone to this thing. My son was getting his 3rd degree Taekwondo black belt, 3rd degree, whatever. And so I was at that. I'm driving home, no lie. There is a home improvement show on the radio talking about clogged up air conditioners, and talked about pouring bleach down the drain. And in this house that I lived in, my air conditioning line would get blocked up with fungus, and we would put bleach in it and it would be fine. I'm like, I just heard this show and I used to do this in my house. It's like, it's not gonna work. It worked like a champ. But a lot of times people will just sit there and listen to that show and not like make the connection, like, wait, this is what's going on and here's my answer.
Yeah, how about that? I always used to have a bad habit of saying, something told me to do this, but I didn't. And now that I didn't do it, I'm regretting it because whatever has happened. And since me and James really started doing the podcast, I have learned to really listen to my intuition, right? Not only do I listen to my intuition, I was like, what are we going to do? And just put the question out there, and then just, not even thinking about it, the answer will usually present itself.
Yeah,
exactly. Some people can call this, and I hate this word, but it is so true, surrender. You're surrendering to spirit. And it's like, oh, okay, I'm surrendering.
That's interesting. It's funny, like Kelly said, since we started this, I've become more, I guess, open to these things. And like you say, if you start paying attention, you notice things and you'll get answers, and it's crazy.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to use your comment, Kelly, for a second. That is really a great way of raising your awareness as well. It's like, okay, so now you're in the aftermath. You didn't take the sweater, you didn't take the umbrella, you're sitting there banging your head on the head going, oh man, I should have listened to myself. And that's the perfect teaching moment, because that's telling you, this is how the information comes in. This is how I register it. And, so for myself, and it sounds like for both of you, when you get those little messages, even though it might be really weird, it's kind of like, oh, I'm going to go turn this off, or I'm going to go turn the light on, or I'm going to go do some weird thing that makes no sense, but that it's coming in that same way as the thing that told me to take the sweater. So now I'm just going to do it, even if it's weird.
Right. Or especially when I'm driving and I'll be like, God, where is this location? And something will say, turn left here. Just like, I'm just going to turn left here. And there it is. It's like, oh, I didn't even need the GPS, because, if I listen to the little voice in my head sometimes, which sometimes is right. Sometimes I like to think it's always right, but sometimes it's not always right. But a lot of times when it just comes out of nowhere, it's pretty accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
So doctor, when you're with a client and you see how is it that you're picking this up? Is it a vibration? Do you see an aura? How does it look to you, or how does it feel to you?
So it really depends on what I'm working on. So if I'm working on that they have a physical issue, they have some kind of digestive disturbance going on or whatever, it's like I go to the physical level vibration in my seeing and look in their body, so I do actually see organs, glands, tissues, etc. But I'm also really kinesthetic. And so if I'm addressing a kidney issue, let's say they have a kidney infection, now my back starts to hurt, which is fun. But to me, again, there's always that emotional part. Or if I'm talking about a relationship issue, it's kind of like, I change the focus. I go to a different channel. Physical body is denser, so it's a lower vibration. So when you switch into emotional energy, it's a higher vibration. You kind of move into the emotional level of the auric field, the emotional body or the mental body. They kind of go really hand in hand. And so I shift my focus. And so when I'm working with someone, I prefer doing the physical stuff first and then like circling back, because I really have to shift that focus to hit that different vibration. Again, it's like changing the channel. I have to get up, walk across the room, change the channel, and then get back into the reading.
So when you are doing these readings, is it something that once you find the trauma, then what's the next step? So once you've, tuned in and you found it, can you help remove the energy? Is that something that they have to do? How does that work?
I mean, usually it works hand in hand. Identifying it is usually the first step. And I have a large number of clients that work with me, and we do a combination of energy work, and I combine that with like mindfulness or doing some behavioral changes and just raising their awareness to what's going on. And so, there's always the evaluation, which is the reading part. And then after that, when I do energy work, I can't turn the vision off. And so if I'm working on a physical thing or an emotional thing, I'm still receiving input from their bodies, and little commentary. Some of them are there. People's spirit guides are hysterical. Just saying. And, and I take note and then I communicate what I received, especially if there's an emotional piece that, like a core belief that comes up for them, because it takes what was really like shoved back behind them and brings it into their conscious awareness, and so they can, on a conscious level, work on processing it. And I find that is just really, really helpful, because many times they don't even know that that's trapped there, or they're stuck there.
Doctor, have you ever had anyone, I mean, they can't be too skeptical if they're open enough to go see you, but have you ever had anyone who just had an experience and just opened their eyes to all this?
I'm not sure, like a client person or just like
client.
Somebody.
Yeah, a client, I'm sorry.
Maybe you've had a client come to you that maybe they're a little skeptical,
right,
and then once they've had a reading with you, they now see results.
Oh, I mean, I've had a lot of people like that. It's, and a lot of times they come with people that find me usually come with a fairly open mind,
right.
And have a reasonable degree of spiritual background and openness in that way. I used to do, they're coming back. I'll say that they're coming back, but I used to do a lot of like psychic fairs and wellness expos, and I just love them. I love the energy and being around people. And those you get a lot of people that don't really know what, I call them looky-loos, because it's like, yeah, just tell me something. And it's like, okay, I guess I'll just tell you something. So it's really not diagnostic or, getting into any really deep issues. And, a lot of times my goal is to not make them cry at the fair or say something really, challenging or deep, although it happens. And so that's where I tend to find those kind of people is, and either they're like, wow, you really hit, and I got some really good insights, or they walk away and they think you're, like I just wasted $20 or whatever.
Right.
I was at this is one of my favorite like fair stories. So I was at this fair, and so when I'm at a show, I do card reading. So when I'm working with my regular clients, it's like, bring your questions, because we're just going to address your stuff. But when they just sit down and say, tell me something, so I do a card reading, and I do an aura chakra reading. And the first thing that I start talking to this woman about is there's this man that's in her life, is her age. I didn't get the impression that it was a spouse person because it wasn't that deep of an emotional relationship, not father, not son. So somebody, but her age range. And she's like, no. And I'm like, but he's sucking you dry. No, don't know anybody. And so for me, spirit will just keep taking me back to the same place over and over and over again until that person gets it. And so I'm like trying to look at other cards and move on. And I'm like, you sure you don't know this guy? And I mean, to the point that all right, and I will admit this, and I never do this, although in this situation, I had 10 more minutes that I had to fill up. I just made up a bunch of crap, because I had nothing, because I couldn't get past the guy, because they just kept taking me back to the guy and nothing else was coming through. So she's writing me a check and she's getting up from the chair and she goes, yeah, my brother's schizophrenic and he lives with me.
There you go.
There's the guy.
Yeah.
But it was like, are you kidding me?
Wow.
That is crazy.
That is.
So, Rita, do you do readings just in person? Do you do them over Zoom? If somebody wanted to reach out to you, how would they reach you?
And so all of my readings are by phone or I live in Podunk, Texas, so nobody wants to come here. Or Skype. I don't really do Zoom, but I do Skype. I prefer phone, then I don't have to fix my hair or anything. And the easiest way to contact me is via my website and using the contact form, because then it definitely ends up in my inbox and not in my junk folder. And, I like to respond that way. And I'm a bit of an internet junkie. And so I usually will respond within 24 hours, if not sooner.
And what's the website?
Soulhealer.com, SOULHEALER.com, soulhealer.com.
Soulhealer.com. Rita, Dr. Rita, thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us about, being an intuitive. Now, I just got one question. Is being an intuitive along the same lines as being an empath?
So from a really technical point of view, an intuitive is a more encompassing, you have the ability to receive information, where an empath, it's more you're receiving that information on a feeling level.
Gotcha.
Where you can be an intuitive and be a clairvoyant and see stuff or hear material or whatever.
But an empath, you're more feeling it.
More feeling, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense. Again, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast.
Thank you. I had
thank
fun.
you, Doctor. You know what I think is cool, Cal? It seems, and maybe I just notice it more, but it seems like holistic medicine is becoming more mainstream. And I like the way that more mainstream doctors are incorporating it with their treatment of the patients.
I would agree with you. I think as somebody who really likes holistic medicine cured me of my chronic back pain, where Western medicine, going the route of the injections and all that did not work. My back was jacked up.
It was.
You know what? It wasn't even jacked up. Let's just call it what it is. My back was fucked up. Okay. To the point where I would have to psych myself up to get up to go take a shower. No lie. I would wake up in the morning. I would wake up a half an hour early and I would pop 5 Percocet just to get out of bed to take a shower. And how I would be able to function and work off of 5 Percocet, I don't know, but I did for a very long time. And then the injections worked for a hot second and then they stopped. So I'm all about naturopathic medicine. absolutely holistic medicine. Somebody had said, and one day we should really try to get a herbalist on the show. Somebody had told me that there's a herb. What is it? An herb for everything.
Oh, I believe that. I believe
for every disease, there's a natural cure.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, something to think about.
I believe that also, Kelly. I just wanted to throw that out there real quick.
That's really good, James.
Thanks. I had to get in there real fast.
Anyway, I agree with you on the naturopathic medicine, and I really appreciate what Dr. Louise does. With that being said, random bullshit?
Random bullshit. Okay. So, I was watching a classic, H.G. Wells' Time Machine.
Okay.
At the end of the show, he goes forward to the future. Well, he goes back because he came back from, okay. And they notice he took 3 books. They didn't know what the 3 books that he took were. So my random bullshit question is, if you were traveling to the future, okay, you have to rebuild civilization, which 3 books would you take?
You know, James, that is an excellent question. Probably not the best person to ask, because all the books that I've read in my book reading career have been smut trash novels by Jackie Collins. So would I take...
You could take it if you want.
Well, hold on. I think I know what books I'm going to take. Because these are the 3 authors that when I was an avid reader, which I'm really not anymore, which is kind of sad, but when I was heavily into reading, I would take these 3 books. I would take Mario Puzo's The Godfather, because the book is so much better than the movie. Oh my God. You should have known. Yeah, I would take, I think I would take one of the Jackie Collins novels, maybe Poor Little Bitch Girl or The Bitch or one of those, right? Just so we can have some smut in the future, right? And then lastly, I would probably take, I've got my gangsters, I've got my smut. I guess we need to have like one good book, right? And I'm not taking the Bible, I'm not taking the Quran, I'm not taking any of those books. But I think I'll take a book I read not so long ago called You're a Badass and You Know It. I forget who wrote it, but yeah, those are the 3 books I would take, because I'm not an avid reader, and I guess the future would be really interesting with those 3 books as our kind of foundation. We got smut, we got gangsters, and we got being a badass. What more could you want in civilization?
I can already see it. Do you remember the Star Trek episode where they go to the planet and they're all gangsters?
There you go.
Yeah, that's Kelly's future right there.
What books would you take?
Okay, so I was thinking about this. Now, I don't know the title, okay, but because I was just thinking about this real quick. I would want to take the writings of Buddha. Okay? Not really. Hey, I think when you said Godfather, right?
I'm saying it figures that you would come up with the writings of Buddha.
Why?
Right? Because I'm not surprised that you would want to take the writings of Buddha, because you're a very Zen person, and I guess you're going to build a utopian society, unlike my gangster society.
We have to have a little yin into the yang.
Okay, so we got the writings of Buddha.
Okay. Then I would take a law book.
Which law?
Well, that's the thing. I don't know what you would call it. Just a book of basic laws.
Okay, wait. Question, sir.
Yes.
Whose laws?
Well, that's a good question. It'd have to be, would you call it English laws? Because I don't speak
so
any
you would
other
take,
language.
No, I'm saying that you would take laws here in America, because they do have laws in other countries.
Oh, I understand. I can't comment on that because I don't know the laws in other countries.
That's what I'm saying. Would you take just an American law book?
Well, yes.
Okay.
Because I don't.
Just checking.
I'm not going to say I'm going to take a Japanese law book because I don't know anything about Japanese law.
Okay. Cool.
All right. And then,
are you an expert on American law, just by chance?
No, that's why I'm taking the book.
Okay.
Okay. And then I would take a book called The Precious Present. Okay. It's a really short book. And the two characters are a young man, old man, and it just goes through how the old man teaches the young man it's not so much about the presents you receive in life, but that you are present in life.
You know, your society sounded pretty utopian, like you're really trying to outdo Kelly's society. You know,
no, I'm just balanced. I'm balanced. It's the yin to the yang.
The yin to the yang. You know what, James? Actually, that's well thought out. That's actually a really good question. That's a good icebreaker for, like, if you're like me and you go to Zoom meetings and they ask you random icebreaker questions, 3 books to take to the future would be a very telling question. Because now you know I don't know much about books, or I don't have lots of books that I've read as far as deep intellectual books. I read gangster novels, smut novels. What was my other one I chose? Oh, probably some type of Stephen King novel. Yeah. So, you know.
Your world sounds scary, man. It does. I mean, Stephen King is scary as it is. And then can you imagine if Stephen King wrote gangster books? What it would look like?
Oh my God, that's actually a really interesting. You know, he wrote kind of the cowboy kind of Dark Tower type books, which is a little different for him. But gangsters, I don't know. How would it have been if Mario Puzo and Stephen King could collaborate on a book? That would be very interesting. Gangsters with zombies, maybe? I don't know.
Really, no zombies. I don't like zombies.
I don't like zombies either. I'm just saying. I don't know. At any rate, James, let's wrap it up. So you can get us on our social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. There you can go and check us out. Actually, you know, we've been thinking about it, and we might have said this before because we tend to say a lot of things, but we're actually looking to maybe revamp that website. So when we do, we'll let y'all know, but you can still go check it out. And
we are looking on how to do it better. So yes, it will change.
Yep. So www.thatsomecrazyshitpodcast.com.
Ready to wrap it up?
It's all you, dude.
Okay. Until next time, people, keep your minds open.